I'd like to call to order the JEA Governance Committee meeting right now. I'm Joe DeSalvo, the chairman of this committee. And at this time, I'd like to pause for a time of reflection. Okay, let me first turn it over to Jody Brooks. Jody, any comments?
No, from an introduction perspective, this is the first meeting of the Governance Committee, and I really appreciate everybody's the commitment of time in order to go through all the various documents. And I know that the council liaison is going to have comments a little bit later. From an introductory perspective, I believe Dr. Haley and Dr. Faison have now joined. We've got Mr. Baker, DeSalvo, Lanahan, and Baker on. Have I missed anybody from the board perspective?
Yeah, I'm on.
Yeah, Bobby Stein's here too, Jody.
Okay, and Bobby. I believe from an introductory perspective, I think we're good to go there. So if you want to go ahead and move down to D for the adoption of the agenda.
Sure. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Great, thank you. Okay, this time, all those in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Great, okay, it's approved the agenda for this meeting. At this time, I'd like to hand off to Paul McElroy. Paul, for a safety brief, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Safety is core value at JEA, and given the pandemic in our community, in our state, and our nation, I'll just say wear masks, wash hands, social distance, and restrict your moving about the community as much as you possibly can. We at JEA continue to maintain a work environment now that has our employees working remotely, dispatching from home, deploying from home, and social distancing in the workplace. We are also sticking to all guidelines from the public health officials in terms of health checks, both at facilities and at work sites, and continue to stay extremely focused on this issue so we keep our workforce as healthy as possible and keep the utility services operating at their normal, exceptional level. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate that. And Jody, could you please cover the sunshine laws?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The executive order of the governor, the executive order number 2069, has been extended through August 1st, and that allows us to have this virtual setting meeting that has been properly noticed. Minutes will be taken, and that there is a quorum of the committee present, so we're in good shape to proceed with this public meeting. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jody. And at this time, Landon, let me turn it over to you. If you can just read how we'll do the public comments from an IT perspective, please.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Landon Todd, and for those that are new to the WebEx technology, let me give you a brief overview of the controls. If you're joining us via the desktop interface or a smart device, such as a smartphone or tablet, you can move around the screen and we'll see a series of buttons at the bottom. The very first one that you may notice looks like a red microphone with a slash through it. If it is red, it means you are muted and will be on mute for the majority of this meeting unless recognized to speak. If you are recognized to speak or you're asked to provide comment, you may click on that button and it will turn dark gray or black. This will mean that you're unmuted and people can hear you. I do ask that you use the mute option to mute your line when you're not speaking. This will allow us to reduce the amount of background noise and have the most productive meeting possible. Also, if you would like to see who is participating in today's meeting, you can look over 3 more buttons to the right to find an icon that looks like a person. If you click on that, it will bring up the participant list. If you're on a mobile device, it will pull up in front of everything, and if you're joined on your desktop machine, it will come up on the right side of your screen. This will allow you to see a long list of individuals who have joined this meeting. Also, I have enabled the chat capability. If you touch your screen or scroll next to the person icon, you will see the chat window. You will notice an icon that looks like a caption bubble. If you click on that, it will bring up this chat window. Please remember that this meeting is being recorded and that I ask you to please be professional. But if you run into any difficulties, you can chat me directly, or if you would like, type comments to everyone. Now, due to circumstances resulting from COVID-19, a historic number of employees are rapidly transitioning to remote work. WebEx meetings have never been more vital for staying connected. For some users, meeting experiences may be impacted due to strain on service providers, causing internet and phone service degradation. Here are some tips you can take to get the best meeting experience in today's meeting. Number 1, close background applications. If you're not using them, applications on your device are using precious resources. Before or during your meeting, close any applications and browser sessions that you're not using. Number 2, switch to call-in by audio. If your internet audio and video experience or the call me or call me back feature does not work, you can keep collaborating. Call in using the dial-in numbers in today's meeting invitation to join via your cell phone or landline. Number 3, hardwire your workstation. Depending on your location and how many people are using your same Wi-Fi around you, you may see slower speeds on Wi-Fi than on a wired connection to your computer. And number 4, contact the JEA WebEx team. If you're having any difficulty, JEA's WebEx support team is here to help you and may be reached by email at webexsupport@jea.com. Now for public comments. We will be using the raised hand feature. If you're using the WebEx client, this feature is located within the participant window. At the top of the list, your name will be visible. To the right, you will notice a gray icon that looks like a hand. If you click it, it will turn blue, letting me know that you would like to be recognized for comment. Now, for those that have called directly in to today's meeting, there are 2 additional ways for you to notify me that you'd like to speak. The first is by pressing *3 on your phone, which will raise your hand and then allow you to press *6 to unmute your line. If you unmute your line, please state your first and last name so that everyone may hear who is speaking before you proceed with your comment. As we go through this meeting, I am the moderator and have the capability to mute or unmute everyone's line, but I only do so to ensure that this meeting runs smoothly. As we got about 2 minutes for public comments, I will go ahead and ask Madrika if there's any comments that have been submitted so far via email until we get to the top of the hour or 10 minutes after the hour. Madrika, do we have any emails that have come in so far?
Excuse me, I do not have any email public comments.
Okay, I will circle back with you in 2 additional minutes, but I will go ahead and proceed with public comments. For those that have joined us through the WebEx technology, this is the time for you to go ahead and let us know that you would like to provide comments. If you would, please go ahead and press the hand feature within the chat window if you'd like to go ahead and be recognized. And we'll give you a few seconds. Okay, we are now going to move to the alternative method for public comment. If you have joined us by phone, now press *3 on your phone, or you may choose to type a message within the chat window if you're having difficulty with the raised hand feature. And we'll give a few moments for that. Okay, it is now 1:10 p.m. Madrika, I'm going to go back over to you. Have any additional emails been received for public comment?
No, I don't have any email public comments.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and close public comment session and turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Landon and Madrika. At this time, I'd like to ask Council Member DeFleur for any comments, and also appreciate you plugging into the session too. Council Member DeFleur, please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I have you good.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm having internet connection issues, so if I'm going in and out, I apologize. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for your work with the JEA. When we did the time of reflection, I can tell you that my time of reflection was my gratitude to all of you for the work that you're doing here. As it relates to the council, we are working hard. We're now deep into the budget. I want to also thank the JEA for their 1% increase in contribution to the city. We're very thankful for that. We're going to need it this year. And also, I want to thank Jody Brooks in particular. I've worked with her one-on-one as it relates to the charter changes, specifically 21.11, and she has been an incredible blessing to me. And I can tell you, we're most fortunate that she came back to the JEA. She is top notch. I trust her implicitly. And thank you, Jody, for your work. And that's really all I have at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Council Member DeFleur. And echo your comments on Jody too. She's been fantastic helping us all right now. Okay, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and proceed and for committee consideration. And first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Governor's Committee Charter. And Madrika, if I could ask you to, if you can pull up, it's on page 46. I believe that's where the charter is, if you can pull that up. And while that's happening, first, I'd like to sincerely thank all my fellow committee members for your volunteering to do this. For Marty Lanahan, Leon Haley, and Zachary Faison, I know you're all busy with your day jobs, but this is very important. So appreciate you volunteering, and also Tom Von Estel too for that. What I'd like to do right now is first see if any of the committee members would like to make any remarks or express any issues with the Governance Committee Charter, which was passed at our last board meeting on June 23rd. And I'll pause for any comments.
It all looks good. We've got a lot of work to do.
Exactly.
Mr. Chair, I have no comments.
Okay, thank you. So that said,
Landon, do you have the board package materials that you could flip to page 46 or no? It is page 46 of 158. I didn't know, Mr. DeSalvo, if you're interested in reading out the responsibilities of the committee, or if the committee's okay with what the committee's responsibilities will be as part of this effort. I know that you asked Madrika, but I'm not sure if anyone has the ability to put the board documents up on the screen.
Okay, sure. And so just in case, what I want to do real quickly is just review the responsibilities, and then I'll follow on with some expectations. So first is to ensure the board policy manual and the JEA bylaws are consistent with JEA charter, other provisions of the City Council, the City of Jacksonville Charter, and also, of course, Article 21, which is still in draft mode right now. Second responsibility is to restructure the JEA Board Policy Manual to facilitate comprehension, cross-referencing, and just as important, transparency. The third is to update this Board Policy Manual to reflect the current JEA mission, values, and goals. Next is to prepare updated JEA bylaws that reflect the current JEA board membership and governance procedures. And then lastly is conduct committee meetings to discuss suggested changes to the JEA governance documents on an as-needed basis and in accordance with the Sunshine Laws. Okay, so with that, as Marty said, and I think we all realize there is a lot of work to do here. And first what I'd like to do is outline expectations of the committee members. First, I think it's important that we maintain a strategic perspective and when necessary, get down to operational and only when necessary, go tactical level. Secondly, we have the leeway to draft off the current version, the February 2010 version, or we can create a new manual from scratch, and we'll discuss this in a second. I'd like to emphasize that our task to update the JEA board governance documents, and in particular, the board policy manual, is needed for two reasons. One, it's 10 years old right now. Last was in 2010. And secondly, it's timely we're doing this because of the City Council's draft Article 21 charter, which is currently being led by Councilmember Boylan in his workshop. And we just have to make sure that document changes, we're in sync with it. This task is going to be too important for us to rush through. We don't want to rush to failure on this. And I think it's important that we give this due diligence to make sure we produce a good document, not only for our board, but also for the city of Jacksonville. And so that sort of begs the question, what's a reasonable timeline for completion for us to finish with the board manual and bylaws? And quite honestly, I don't think we can answer that right now. I know based on the Article 21 glide path, which, Jody, if I'm not mistaken, the earliest that will be approved is November, I think.
That sounds accurate. It looks like we're trying to get the legislation filed by the July 29th, but moving through the cycles and the time requirement to get it approved, November is probably going to be the earliest it will get finalized.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we know we really can't go final on our product until the Article 21 charter is approved. And there's a bunch of other aspects of this, of the policy manual and the policies that we need to consider. So it's not like we're going to finish this in 4 months, I'm pretty sure. But I do think that it's going to be important for us as a committee to make sure that we have clearly established objectives and deliverables for each of our meetings so that then we can give timely feedback to the full board as we progress through. And I think if we can adjourn each meeting with a definite understanding of what the deliverable is, what we've accomplished, and what we need to do next meeting, then we'll maintain the momentum we need to make sure that we get this task done and not drag out or go into long pauses without any action for that. So any comments on what I just said at all from my colleagues at all?
No, I think that it would be great to just give you the ability to work directly with Paul and staff to help us with a flow chart to make sure that we do have those deliverables for each meeting, because there's some things that might be easier lifts than others.
No, absolutely, Marty. Understood. Thank you. Okay, next thing I'd like to do is look at the draft of statement of the board's mission, vision, values, and goals. And that should be on page 102, I believe. If Madrika or whoever can pull that up, I'd appreciate it. And while that's being pulled up, so under the current manual that we're under, the February 2010 edition, there is no JEA board statement for the mission, vision, values, and goals and objectives. And for one, I think this is important that we do this for a bunch of reasons. One, this should be the foundation for what the board is all about. And also it messages the community, city council, and all stakeholders what our purpose is. The second thing I think is important about this statement is when in the absence of any other guidance and when things are confusing, this is a reference at least that I think we as board members can refer to at least at a minimum make sure that we're all on the right ethical azimuth as we wait for further details or more information. And it's also a good reminder to, again, remind us of what we stand for. And I also believe what the city and the customers look for. So on the mission, by the way, I drafted this up around 2 weeks ago, and Paul McElroy was kind enough to take a look at it and make some very good and useful comments for me. So this is what we've come up with. The mission: the JEA board will exercise ownership, management, and operate for the city of Jacksonville the utility system and a separate system providing fiber optic and telecommunications offerings. That last portion, that's in accordance with the current draft of the Article 21 Charter, which has specifies that as part of the JEA mission. So that's the draft mission statement, and I'll pause to see if any of the committee members have any comments.
The citizens of Jacksonville are referenced in the goals and objectives, but as you know, we've got constituents and ratepayers that are beyond the city structure. Is it possible to just represent in some place that we operate on behalf of the ratepayers, which kind of incorporates everybody, regardless of what county they live in?
Yeah, absolutely, Marty. And I appreciate the input on that. Okay, moving on to the vision. JEA is a standard for public utilities in the United States. Again, it's a simple one-liner. I don't think it's overambitious, and the idea here is to communicate and message all the stakeholders that we want JEA to be a leading public utility and not just be a average functioning one. So I'll pause here for any comments.
So on that note, Mr. Chair, should we put a qualifier in there and say JEA is the highest standard for public utilities in the United States? Because if you say standard, that's going to imply we're just going to be average, we're going to be okay. But if we really believe that our goal is to be leading or the highest standard, then we should say that.
Or best in class. That's
or best in class, or what, however you want to word it. But
great. Okay, thanks, Leon. Good point. And that's easy to incorporate. Okay, moving to the values. 4 of them are proposed. First one's leadership, be able to make the tough calls. Second one is selfless service, do what's right for the community. Third is competency, know the nuances of the public utility industry. And then the fourth one is integrity, adhere to a strict moral and ethical code. Any comments at all?
I would just beef up transparency, and that's probably in the integrity section, but somewhere referencing, abiding by the spirit of the sunshine laws, or in the spirit of transparency. So you can wordsmith that one in.
Sure. Okay, thanks, Marty. Okay, and then moving on to the goals and objectives. Now, we probably could come up with a lot of these, but the idea here I propose is just keeping this part tractable. So it's, again, generally at the strategic level, because in these goals and objectives, when we get an opportunity to delve into the manual, we'll be covering a lot of these in depth. And the first one, be proactive in issuing important guidance and making timely decisions, as the goal and the objective is to maintain a planning horizon that looks 5 years out and anticipate key decisions to be made. Second goal, act in the best interest of a JEA workforce, customers, and the citizens of Jacksonville. The objective, utilize the expertise of board members to enhance the ability of the board as a body rather than substitute individual judgments for the board's values. Third goal, exercise due diligence so well-informed decisions can be made. The objective, use sound business judgment consistent with JEA's legislative charter. And final goal, integrity, secure the trust and confidence of the Jacksonville community. The objective, strict adherence to sunshine laws, JEA charter, Florida and Jacksonville city ethic codes, JEA code of conduct. Now, based on Marty's comments earlier, obviously we'll expand this beyond the citizens of Jacksonville, realizing that we have other customers outside Jacksonville too for that. So with that, I'll pause for any comments and feedback.
planning horizon 5 years out, with, generation issues with power. Should we look beyond that? I mean, again, I can defer that question to you and Paul for a later answer. But we're really looking, I think, even beyond 5 years if we look at our fleet.
Yeah, my take,
Yeah, that's
on it, my take would be not to put a number in at all, right? But to reflect that we're always looking forward. We're planning for the future, however that's best determined. But I would, because once you lock into that 5 years, then you're right, Marty, you get into sort of this dynamic that is it 5, is it 10? So I wouldn't put a number in at all.
Okay. I thought I heard somebody trying to come on. Paul, what do you think?
Well, I was going to jump right in and say, Marty, you're right on. There's a 10-year plan for generation, and that sort of is the outer limit. But I certainly did like Leon's comment in terms of just forward facing, because depending upon the line of business, the time horizon is different. It makes more sense looking 5 years versus 10, and then in other cases 10 versus 5. So maybe without a year, but forward looking, future statement might work best.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think Zachary, any issue on your end on that? Any comments?
Don't have any issue. I'm joining by phone. I'm having some technical challenges, so that's why my responses may be a little delayed. But yeah, no issues.
Okay, thanks, Zachary. Okay, great. Okay, for the next part, I'd like to move on to part C here for the governance policy foundational documents discussion here. Now, just to this is no small task, and I really appreciate Jody Brooks and Madrika for helping out on this. But the idea here is to make sure we have all the documents that we need to be incorporating for references as we do the look at our updating our policy manual. And so the ones we're tracking, just so everybody's on the same sheet, is the draft City Council's Article 21 charter, the JEA bylaws, the JEA Board Policy Manual dated February of 2010, a document, a one-pager, policy, statutes, ordinances applicable to or approved by JEA's board, a board governance manual and compliance and update assessment. Now, for this one, if you had a chance to look at it, this was done in March of 2015 by then the board, and this was part of their effort when they were looking at updating the manual, as best I can tell. And so it's the comment sheet on what parts they want to change, and actually it's in a table format. And I just thought it'd be a useful reference because you can get an idea of at least 5 years ago what changes the board thought was necessary to the 2010 document. And looking through it, there's probably some good ideas there that we could incorporate too. So that's why I thought this might be useful for everybody. And then finally, there's a very good document, Governing for Excellence by Jeffrey Taubert. And I think we all received this as part of our onboarding materials in hard copy. And also, I think Madrika sent a link to you all, to everybody, in case you don't have the hard copy of it. But this actually provides some very good, succinctly stated recommendations, observations from a public utility expert that I think we will all find useful on that. What I'd like to do next, so that's the documents I see, and if anybody knows of any more out there, by all means, please let me know, or Jody, so we can make sure we can incorporate those for that. What I'd like to do is, if you can put up the table of contents, please, which I think is on page 105. And as that's being brought up, so this is sort of the basic foundation right now we're looking at with the board manual. And as you can see, it's broken up into four parts, basically. You've got the ends, as you can see there, which generally are the measures of effectiveness, and it gets into the KPAs and KPIs. Then you have the executive limitations part, which talks about CEO, authorities, and constraints. Then part 3 there is a board management delegation. And that talks about the relationship between the CEO and the board, as you can see, talking about accountability among other things, and also remuneration. And then the last part 4 is governance process, which is just describes how we conduct ourselves as a board, et cetera, for that. Now, let me just pause here to see what folks think about this, at least as far as areas being addressed at the manual. Generally, do you think it hits about the right areas? There's some stuff here that's missing that I'll talk about in a second, but first I'd just like to hear your comments and feedback on the general organization of the manual and the content.
This is probably just a philosophical comment, but it's the board manual and how the board operates governance itself and the organization. So the governance process should really be first, right? So it ought to actually start with who we are as a board, governance, agenda, officers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like the whole thing should be reversed, right? So it should be the governance process first, who the board is, what we do, responsibilities, expectations, et cetera. Then it's who we delegate that to, right? Because our primary objective is to hire the CEO and have that person lead the organization. Then it's executive limitations. Then it's sort of what we do. So I think they're the right buckets in general, but I would actually flip the order.
Yeah, very good comment, Leon.
I agree with that.
Okay.
Why?
Great. Okay, now there's two things that are missing when you read through it right now, the manual. One is reference to CEO evaluation criteria. And right now there is none. There's no concise checklist type reference for how the CEO will be evaluated. And I think this is important for us to, I propose, focusing on first. One, it's going to be essential as we do the permanent CEO search, as that process is ongoing. And I think, and I'll, with Chairman Baker's concurrence and the full board's concurrence, and when we get to the point, is I think we need to focus on that first so it can be incorporated as we all start participating in the CEO search. Plus, I think it's only fair to the CEO, the soon-to-be designated CTO, whoever it is, that he or she have an idea of what our evaluation criteria will be. In addition, this will also flesh out what we as a board see their responsibilities, authorities, preferred characteristics, et cetera, are. Because right now, we don't have anything uniform to show any prospective candidate for that. So I think that part will be important. The second observation is, just like there's no CEO evaluation criteria, there is no JEA board evaluation criteria either. And obviously, that's going to be huge. It has all about transparency, et cetera. So I think that's just as important almost as the CEO evaluation criteria, that we get a handle on that, because one, everybody expects it, and number two, it's that important. So that said, what I'm saying is, I think our initial focus should be on the CEO evaluation criteria, and then also the JEA board evaluation criteria as we start moving forward with this effort. And I'll just pause for what you all think on that.
Again, I think it's a great catch, and I think it's important for us to incorporate that go forward.
Yeah, I'm in agreement as well on both of those fronts.
Great. Thank you, Zachary.
Joe, this is John. Do we have in this policy manual a calendar? I remember reading something, but I don't see it listed here where it says when we do things, how often we do them, which board meetings we address them at. I think that's a part of the governance process that needs to be included.
Yes, yes, John, it is in there. In fact, we're supposed to, right now under the 2010 manual, we're supposed to be doing an evaluation twice a year of the board, and I believe it's annually on the CEO for that. And there's other milestones and suspenses mentioned in it, although there's a better way of portraying it too, like just on a page that has a table showing the stuff instead of sifting through pages where it's embedded in a paragraph and really isn't that conducive to grasping and being able to track.
There have been a lot of policies that are supposed to be done annual that hadn't been done for years. So I think it's important to make it so it's easy for us to keep track of it.
Yeah, absolutely, John. And that brings another point. Just some thoughts. The good news on the current format is it's broken down by policy letters when you look into it. So when it's time to update something, it makes it sort of easy to know where to go specifically in the manual to get updated because it's all segregated by policy subjects. That part's sort of good. We already mentioned the order of the manual is almost backwards, as everybody has said. The other part of this, though, is, again, there's a lot of key deliverables by date, when it's supposed to happen, like John just referred to, where, again, it'd be a lot easier if we had one table, one annex showed what the event is, when it has to happen, who's supposed to do it, et cetera. Then we can see it all on one or two sheets of paper instead of going through 56 pages and piecemealing it out. So just sort of to dovetail on what John's comments were. So I think that said, there's going to be some administrative support that obviously JEA can provide us, and Steve Tootin will be talking to us on this in a second. But we don't need to decide right now, but I think it sort of gets back to we need to think about, do we keep the same format generally as it is in policy letters that are sequenced logically, or go to a completely different format? And so I think I'm hearing folks say right now it sort of looks like we generally stick with the same format, get the right ordering and sequencing. But the idea is make this a usable manual that's easy to reference, that's easy to change, and easy to read, if I'm sort of hearing everybody's thoughts.
I think that's the plan, Mr. Chair.
Great.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. What I'd like to do is, if I can ask Paul, I believe Steve Tootin, to let us know at what kind of admin support that I believe his audit office will be able to offer us. And this part I think is pretty important. It's also very mundane. I got it, but we've got to find out exactly, I think, what how we go about making changes, who we submit them to, how the track change type activity will happen. Because I think that the committee will have to have an efficient process for doing this. Because again, everybody has a day job, and we're going to need some help on this for tracking changes, et cetera. So, Steve, if I could turn it over to you, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, fellow board and committee members. Yeah, we look forward, like Paul had mentioned to you, Joe, the compliance group that I oversee will be your working contact / administrative group within JEA. be at your service, essentially whatever you need. Certainly where we can, we'll offer some any type of formatting or research you need, as far as if you want to build in more links to the document and make it less manually intensive. But and also another key person within our executive assistant group is Delisa Jonagarn, who supports the compliance group as well. So initially, obviously, the items you don't need to address to Paul or Jody, you can direct them to me. I asked Madrika to forward you my contact information, both phone and email. So just kind of any time of day, or if you have any questions or need some specific needs, we can accommodate those immediately. So again, the compliance group, we're about 40 strong, but certainly we'll start with me, start with Delisa, and get you what you need, get the items turned around. The document that y'all referred to, the list of the policies and ordinances, all that, we're still kind of wrapping up getting the latest dates in there, because obviously we think we've addressed most of the policies that the board reviews or approved, but we just want to back up through the board archives to make sure we have all those and get that updated and get that draft watermark off of there. But like I say, we look forward to working with you, and any way we can make your meetings efficient, effective, and provide some guidance as far as better formatting, we'll be glad to do it. Any questions?
Great. So, Steve, I think it would be helpful if the committee members had an opportunity, have the ability, if they want, to edit off the current 2010 manual, the letters or whatever, for input, or they can get it in other ways. But is there a way that we can, that if upon request, we can get the electrons to the JEA board policy manual, so that folks want to just do edits into that as one option, that we can do that?
Yes, sir. I think I think we have a Word version of that, which would be obviously easier for any kind of red line or editings you'd all like to do. Obviously, the version you have there is a PDF, but we can get that out to the full board, the committee members, and have that at your availability to go ahead and send back any red lines, either through you, Mr. Chairman, or back to us, and then we can get those updated and get them back in front of the committee. So yes, we'll get that. I'll put that as a action item for myself to get you the Word document of the board policy manual.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Steve. And so let me ask the fellow committee members, any other admin aspect here that hasn't been covered that you all have that you want to raise right now? Okay. Okay, I think, all right, good. Steve, well, again, appreciate appreciate the help that you're going to be able to provide us, you and your team. That's going to be pretty important for us. Okay. So for committee consideration, what I'm tracking is incorporating feedback from the draft missions, visuals, values, goals, and objectives that y'all had. And so what I can do is go ahead and incorporate those, and then just represent the draft to all for a comment. And then the idea is when, we can go final on that for full board consideration, that'd be good. Second one, we all agreed here to prioritize initially focusing on the CEO evaluation criteria and also board evaluation criteria as a start to revising and changing the board policy manual for that. What I'd like to do is have another special committee meeting in August. Again, just keep the momentum we have going, obviously, for that. And then if I'll ask the fellow committee members here, if you think it's possible to present to the full board for approval the draft missions, vision, values, goals, and objectives paper, the one-pager, to the full board for consideration at the July 28th meeting, we can do that. I just, or if you all want to take more time to take a look at the proposed changes and work on that a little and save it for our next committee meeting in August, we can do that. We can go either way on that. Just what do you all think?
My take would be to let the committee kind of work through the mission vision in case people have some additional thoughts, as well as parts of the document, talk about it at our next meeting, and then maybe present to the August meeting.
Okay.
I'm comfortable with that as well. I'd like to ask staff to go see what other public utilities missions and visions are. Just before we make a recommendation, I'd like to just, see other alternatives.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I'd echo Marty's sentiments in that regard. I think it would be wise of us to look at some other utilities and look at their mission and vision, and with an aim towards being able to present something to the full board in August.
Okay, great. No problem at all. And so, again, to facilitate, what I'll do is make sure that Steve Tooten's team has the, I don't know if they do, if they need the electrons to the one-pager, I'll make sure he has that, and then he can get it out to you all so that you can edit off that if you want as you look into maybe to other changes or whatever. I don't think that should be a big deal for that. Okay, any other remarks or comments before we go on to closing considerations?
Mr. Chairman, this is Paul. Would it be helpful if, from a staff perspective, that if we were to start in the revised order, the governance process, maybe at first, and take a look there and see if there are sort of staff level changes that make some of the language in there either, not current or have been phased out of the system altogether or have been replaced, and provide sort of a staff update for the board to work with as well. I wouldn't want to waste the board's time in terms of working through or questioning things that had sort of been resolved and or that we had moved on from. I think we can do that fairly quickly if we take one section at a time.
Yeah, Paul, I think that's a great idea. That just puts us ahead of the power curve instead of getting bogged down into some obsolete material that we already know what needs updated at the staff level. That'd be great if y'all could do that.
I think the only other comment to think about, maybe from the board's perspective, is ultimately we've got a policy that's got many points in terms of individual policy statements and metrics, et cetera. It's just a reporting out in terms of compliance. At some point in time, I would think the board would go through all of this work and have the policy manual put in place, but then looking towards a compliance stamp that at any point in time we can validate back that we are in compliance with all of the policies that will be incorporated in this.
Yeah, good point. I agree. Good point, Paul.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so for closing considerations here, Jody, I guess, so next board meeting is August. I propose the next board meeting for this committee be August 25th, and we'll put that out. If you'll bear with me, Jody, do I have that right? That's for the Governance Committee meeting, right?
I don't. I'm not sure if that's for the full board or if that was for this committee. And Madrika, do you, on the August 25th date, is that accurate?
Yes.
That's the full board. So, Joe, do you want this committee before that, right?
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. So that's the full board meeting. So yeah, we'll look at getting a meeting in August, probably sort of the same time frame, a week before the full board meeting. But I'll work with Madrika here to get proposed dates out to everybody. But yes, definitely would like to have this governance committee meet again in August.
Yeah, and Chair DeSalvo, can I make an announcement before we adjourn this meeting? It's not really related to the committee work, but it's related to the full board work. If you could give me that just a moment of time to make an announcement.
Sure, go ahead, Jody, please.
If there's no other business before the committee.
Okay, I was going to ask, can I bring up one piece of business for this committee before you do that, Jody? I'm sorry.
No, that'd be great.
Relative to the ordinance, and this might be directed to Councilwoman DeFore. I'm glad she's part of our team now. There is reference to a reconstitution of this organization or this body, and I just would like at some point, I know we've got some time on this, but I think we should understand timeframes for that, because I wouldn't want the citizens to not be represented on the board because the charter goes through, but there's a process to reappoint and follow the new guidelines. So I just think we need to be mindful of that and planning for that in the future. It's not necessarily part of the board package, but it's going to be important to us as we move into probably the beginning of next year. That's all.
Okay, thanks. And Marty, just so I understand, so you're referring to the charter, where the new provision in the charter where the city council will nominate, I think it was 4, or then you have one at large.
It's section 21-03 in the charter, and it may not even go through as presented. So there's a lot to be. I just want to make sure that we're not sitting there and we leave the citizens in between. It took us a lot of time to get appointed, and I just don't think that they deserve to go through that again.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and Marty, that piece of the legislation too will require a voter referendum from the makeup of the board of the JEA, and so that will be a parallel, but on a different track than the omnibus rewrite of the ordinance code provisions. But we will keep an eye on that and get an idea from a timing. I need to have a better understanding too from a timing perspective of when those appointments would be made, and so we'll definitely tend to make sure that everyone's aware of the appointment timing and that legislation being pushed through.
Yeah, I just, as it's stated, I know the process and I know it can take a long time. I just don't want us to be in a position again where we don't have a JEA board to conduct business. So if we can just.
If I could make a clarification, I think what, number one, you're absolutely right. It needs to be passed by referendum. And number two, your positions all have terms. So these changes are not going to happen until your terms are complete. Does that make sense?
Makes all the sense in the world. I didn't read it as such. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Any other comments at all? Okay, barring any others, I think we're ready to adjourn this committee meeting. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, Jody wants to have a comment. Go ahead, Jody.
Can I make one announcement if you don't mind?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, Jody.
That's all right. And thank you so much for your and Councilman DeFore's kind words of me at the beginning of this meeting. Made my face a little bit red. But thank you for the very kind words. But I need to make an announcement dealing with the litigation matters of the city of Jacksonville versus the MEAG Municipal Electric Authority, civil action number 119 CV 3234 MHC. That's currently in the United States Court of the Northern District of Georgia, and the Municipal Electric Authority of Georgia versus JEA, appellate case number 1944373. That's currently in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. The JEA is allowed to meet with the JEA attorneys and myself to discuss the pending litigation in which JEA is presently a party, provided that the board strictly follows the statutory requirements. This announcement is part of those requirements. As JEA's attorney, I'm requesting the board's advice on the MEAG litigation matters. A date and a time for the meeting hasn't been finalized, but once it's confirmed, we will post the public notice of the date and the time of the attorney-client session, and we'll name all the persons who will be attending the session. I have advised the board in the past about the challenges of conducting a SHADE meeting using communications media technology. But with the assistance of ITD, I believe that we can conduct a virtual SHADE meeting that strictly adheres to the statutory requirements. I'm developing a procedural document that will guide this board through the attorney-client session to ensure that we meet all of the following requirements. The session will commence at an open meeting. The chair will announce the commencement and estimated length of time of the attorney-client session and the names of the persons attending. At the conclusion of the attorney-client session, the meeting shall be reopened and the chair will announce the termination of the session. The subject matter of the meeting will be confined strictly to the settlement negotiations or strategy related to the litigation expenditures. The entire session will be reported by a certified court reporter. No portion of the session shall be off the record, and the court reporter's notes will be fully transcribed and filed with JEA. That transcript will then be made part of the public record upon the conclusion of the litigation. A virtual setting is not optimal, as we all know, but due to the corona pandemic, I need to discuss the MEAG litigation with the collective board. We are going to conduct a SHADE meeting either next week or in conjunction with our July 28th board meeting. I will need the assurance from the board members that the guidance that I put forth will be strictly adhered to. And if you have any questions or need any additional instructions, please call me once you get the guidance documents and I can review it with you one-on-one. And the strict adherence to the statute is, again, the challenges of a virtual meeting. We will work through them and we'll get it done. But I need everybody all the board members to strictly abide by the guidance that I put out. Thank you for giving me the indulgence to make that announcement today, Chair DeSalvo.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jody, for that. Okay, I think we're set. So this meeting is adjourned. Again, I'd like to thank everybody for their participation, especially Marty, Leon, and Zachary, and Tom will be joining us again, I'm sure. So appreciate everybody's willingness to work on this very important task. Thank you.
Great job, Joe.
Bye.
Great job,
Thank you.
Joe.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Great job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.